Expense. Zoho Expense is a cloud-based application automating expense claims, compliances, and approvals. This video gives you a walkthrough over the Zoho Expense to help you understand how it can help your organizations. So let's get started. Zoho Expense has three roles by default. The roles are the submitter role, approver role, and the admin role. Submitter role is a role wherein the employee or a user in Zoho Expense can submit the expenses and the reports and do not have an access to the approvals and settings. Approvers in Zoho Expense approves the expenses submitted by the submitter and they also cannot have an access to the settings. Admin. Admin is a role who have the unrestricted access to all the modules and have the privilege for all the configurations and modifications to be done in Zoho Expense. They can view the overall status of the expense transactions and the reports inside Zoho Expense. So now let's see all the three roles with the respective views inside Zoho Expense. In the My View options, which is there on the left side of the user panel here, the first option is the home screen, which is a default dashboard which is there in Zoho Expense. This dashboard gives you a user the pending task of all the users, the pending approvals, also allowing the users to add the receipts and add the expenses receipts, and they can create expenses from here. So they can drag the receipts from here from their computer, and they can upload the receipts from here. They can also create the manual expense from here by uploading the manual receipts here and give the expense dates. Select the merchant if required. Select the categories which are there as a default list of category inside Zoho Expense to which this expense belongs to. You can add more categories if you do not find your category inside the list here. You can add the expense amount here for which the total receipt expense amounts pertains to. You can add different currencies for which the expenses are related to. These expenses in a different currencies can be converted into a base currency later on. You can also itemize your expenses into different components and categories here for the better approvals of your expenses based on a different categories. So here, when you are creating an expenses, you can select the amount and the different currencies here, which can be converted into base currencies. And you can also enable this option if the claim is reimbursements. You select the tax type and then you can save the expense here. When you save the expense here, then it can be sent for the approvals to the approvers inside Zoho Expense. You can also create a report here and include the expenses inside Zoho Expense so that the reports can be approved, which consist of all the expenses inside a report. So the report consists of more than one expenses inside that. The dashboard also consists of the report summary, which has the unsubmitted reports, awaited approval reports, and awaiting reimbursements. The user can track their status of their approvals from the report summary, whether the reports are approved, reimbursed, or awaiting the approvals. You have a different options here for the awaiting approvals, which can be tracked here for the reports which are not been approved yet. Then you have the awaiting reimbursements here. So the reimbursement which are already approved, but which are awaiting the reimbursements here can be viewed here. All the recent trips which is raised by the users can be viewed by the users itself here with the status inside that. So this is the user's dashboard or a home screen where the users can track their pending approvals and also can upload their requests here. Then the user also have a trip options here where they can create a trips. By clicking on the new trip, they can create a trip, whether it's a domestic trip or international trip, and they can raise a itinerary from this particular trip options. Itinerary consists of the departure city and the arrival city, the departure date, return date, and also the hotel descriptions here, as well as the car rental, bus, and trains here. And they can submit their trips up from here, so which will then go for the approvals defined inside the system. Users can also raise expenses from the expense feature here. All the expenses can be raised by the submitter here. So they can raise the expense here from this particular window by clicking on the new expense here. They can add the receipts from here. Scan copy of the receipts will be uploaded here. They can put the expense date here inside that. Select the merchant if required. Select the categories, which are the default categories mentioned inside Zoho Expense, and they can add new categories if it is not added previously. Users can also enable this option if the reimbursement is a claim reimbursement here. Select the tax type and add different details here if required, and then click on save here. So once the expense has been saved inside that, it can be sent for the specific approvals. So here it can be like the tax selections here. You can select the a tax which is can be a domestic expense, import, or it is out of the GST scope here. You can select that and then save and close it. Once it is saved and closed, you can add that expense into a report section here, because the reports can consist of more than one expense to be approved. So once you click on the report section here, you can add the expense inside that particular report here. So here you have an expense which is there inside that. You can open that expense here, and then you can associate that expense to a particular report inside that. So it is already been added here, or you can add a new report and from this sections, and you can create a new report here and add an expense here. Once the report has once the report has been created pertaining that particular expense, then you can always select that and submit for a respective approvals. You can select the approval from this particular drop down and click on and select the approvals and click on approve here. If you are an approver, you can also approve that as an act. Then you have the advanced options here. Advanced is a feature where a submitter can raise the advances. Advances can be raised for a specific purposes. For example, the personal advance taken by the submitter, or for any official purpose, advances can be taken. They can also be added to a particular report. So you can record your advances by clicking on the record advances here. Select the currency if required, and then select the advance amount here. Select the date for raising the amount, and this particular advance amount date will be captured by default, but you can also change it if required. You can select the paid through cash advances if required. This is not a mandatory field. And if you want to apply the trip, if you're taking the advance for a particular specific trip, then you can always apply a trip option here, which is created here. So the advance will be associated to that particular trip. Then you can click on record advance. So let's select a trip here, for example, and then you can record an advance for the particular trip, for example. You can apply this particular report to that particular expense to the report, and then you can send it for approvals like this. So this is the advance which is raised. You select that, and you can always send it for approvals from here. Then you have the purchase request. Purchase request is an option or a feature where if you are a purchase request manager, you can raise a purchase requisitions from this particular options, and you can also view all the statuses of your purchase request, whether it's approved, rejected, processed, or waiting for approvals. You can click on the new purchase request here, select the expected date for which you want to raise a request, then give a reasons. If you want, you can give a notes to the approvers. You can select the item's name, for example. You can say, let's say, stationery items. You can select the categories like, for example, office supplies, give a description if you want, select the quantity required, estimated amount in a particular currency you and want to give a tax selection here. You can select the various type of tax configured inside the system. You can select the tax here, and then you can always save that particular request from here. So this purchase requisition has been raised here. You can see the purchase requisitions and you can submit it for approval by selecting the approvals from this window here. All the approvals which are configured inside the system will be who have an approvers role here will be listed here. You can select that, you can click on and send for approvals from this particular section, which is in turn get approved by the approvals. And here you will see all the statuses of your approvals inside the system for the approving amount mentioned at the top at the extreme right corner here. Users can also add their corporate cards or individual cards from these sections. So as a user or a submitter, you can click on connect corporate card, agree on the terms and conditions, and then you can proceed for adding the corporate cards from here. Click on proceeds, and then with the help of the third party connector, you can add your connect cards from this particular section's corporate card from here. You can also import the statements of here. So you can add your manual statements and you can manually add your debit cards from here and give the particular bank name. If the bank is not listed in the card sections, you can always add that banks from here and save and continue. If you are an approver inside Zoho Expense, then you can have an approval tab here where you can check all the approvals here, your trips approvals, your reports approvals, and your advances approval statuses of your approvals for advances, status for the approvals for your purchase request here from this particular sections, and you can also approve that from this particular options here. So you can see all your trips approvals, whether all the trips approvals are pending for approvals, already approved, rejected, closed, cancelled, and you can also see your reports approvals from here. The statuses of your approvals can be viewed from here, and also the advances approvals as well as the purchase request approvals from here. As an approval, you can also approve the request from this particular sections. As a submitter and a user, you have the analytics sections, which gives you the user-based analytics here. So as a user or a submitter, you can always check all your expense details, which is raised by you, right? And all your unsubmitted expense request here, all your expenses by category. So all your user-based or a submitter-based expenses can be viewed from this particular section, as well as the trips-related reports can be viewed from this particular sections. All the budgets and the tax reports can be viewed from here, and the purchase request reports can also be viewed from this particular sections if you are a submitter inside Zoho Expense. You have your own settings here. User have a own settings which they can see. They have basic informations. All the users can see their basic information inside that. They can add their bank account here for their personal access. They can use their bank account, bank name, IFSC code, account type. They can also add the preferences here. Preferences are nothing else, the small details regarding the trips and expenses. So these are very useful when you are going for a trip and you want to add certain details by default. So you can add your meal preferences here and seat preferences, and if it is an international trip, then you can add yes or no whether it's an international trip or not. You can add your meal preferences and select the value, which type of a meal you want here inside that. And you have all the expenses configurations also. You can add your all the expenses details here as a one-time activity, and you can add the taxes which is applicable here inside that. You can add the taxes. You can add more fields like which customer you are actually going to visit, which department you are into it. So that there are different options which you can select here, and you can always customize and you can add your preferences here for depending on the different categories inside Zoho Expense. and then you can save that. You can also configure your purchase request here. So as when you are a purchase manager here, you can always have the purchase value fit in as a one-time activity until you change it for the next time. So you have you can set up a department for this department you are into, and then you can add the departments here so that when you're raising a request, these fields are automatically captured in that particular sections in the purchase. You can also add your travel details here. So you can add your travel profiles here. So if you are a frequent traveler, you can add your nationalities, your date of birth, passport numbers, and and also you can add your other details, add your address, home and work addresses here inside that, and you can set up. You can add that as a one-time activity here. You can also have the budgets options here. So all the budgets in which you are a part of that particular budget, you can see that details inside the budget in this particular area, in this particular sections here. So these are basically the user sections where the users or the submitter can manage all their expenses which is related to the trips, also trip request, and they can view the statuses of the advances, purchase request, and they can add option to add the cards from this particular section and manage all the approvals if the submit if you are an approver also in Zoho Expense. Then the other role which is there inside is an admin role. Admin, as we know that admin has an unrestricted uh, privileges and access to all the modules and configurations related activities inside Zoho Expense. So they have a different sections here. So inside that you have the admins have the home tab here, which has the home dashboard, which is the first landing page the admin can see and manage overall spend summary and overall expense related activities inside and the statuses of all the expense related and trips relatives and all the pending reports statuses from this particular dashboard for all the employees and all overall expenses inside that. So in the spend summary, you have the spend summary option widgets, which you can see all the spend summary which is related for this particular physical year, and you can also filter that as per the different time periods here. You can, as an admin, you can also view the overall spend summary for a particular period here, which can gives you control over and view and insight over the overall summary of the expenses, advances and reimbursement made for a particular period of time. As an admin, you can also view the pending trips, which is there lying with the approver for approving that particular request. You can see the status of that. You can see the reports which are pending for approvals and which are there, and the for the reimbursement which are pending for the reimbursements. All the reports which are pending for the reimbursement you can see from this particular sections here, and you can see the status of your pending advances which is unreported, as well as all the approvals pending advances from this particular sections here. You can see the corporate card summaries here, which is pending for submissions on all the unapproved corporate cards, which is lying here for approvals here. So all the cards which are added as a corporate card inside Zoho Expense, you can see the status of the approvals inside the corporate card summary sections here. Expenses by category. This widget allows you to see the expenses which is raised inside Zoho Expense by all the users, and you can track what is the contribution of the top expenses for a particular period of time, so that you have an effective control on that expenses by the different categories which is mentioned here. And also you can see the expenses by the by projects inside Zoho Expense with the filtrations of different periods inside that. You can also check all the policy violations inside Zoho Expense. So as an admin, when there's any policy violations from the users, so that policy violations can be viewed for a different time periods here. So all the policies which are configured inside the systems and users which are who are covered within that particular policy. If they have any violations, a best use case can be if they have raised an expense with a duplicate receipts which you have already raised expense earlier, then the system will show a policy violations remarks there, and that policy violations can be visible here. Similarly, different policy violations can also be visible here. You have a top spending users also. So all the users which are having a top spending for a particular period of time, they can be viewed here so that you can have meaningful insights about the top spending users in your organizations, and also the top violators who have the policy violations for a different from a different period of time. You can always view that here inside. So as an admin, you have the overall view of uh, your expense approvals, status of expense approvals, top spending summaries, and your overall spending summaries, and across organizations, and your pending trips details and reports, pending report status is also a pending accounts. So this is a very useful dashboard for an admin to have a overall insights about the different expense activities which is carried out inside your expense. Then in the trips module, as an admin, you can check all the trip related status here, which is basically the all trip status, which comprises of the trips request which is raised by the users from time to time, and you can see the status of the trips, whether it's approved or rejected or pending for approvals here. You can see that statuses in a different tabs also. You can see all the statuses which is updated, which is there awaiting approvals. And you can also check all the approved trips statuses from this particular tab. And in the three dots, you have all the different other filtrations where you can see all the different trips in a different categories, like trips which are closed and trips which are rejected, and trips which are awaiting approvals also. So you do not have to search for the different status of approvals inside all approvals. You can also check in different tabs here. Apart from that, you can also add a travel document. As an admin, you can add different travel documents pertaining to a different users. You can select the users here. You can select what type of documents you want to add, and for that particular users, you can add it. So you can use the issuing country and different details of that particular type of a document you want to add. This will be very helpful when the users, particular specific user, are raising a request for a trip which is international or a national domestic trip. As an admin, you will always find that particular documents already uploaded inside the system as a one-time activity. You do not have to chase and follow up that particular specific users to upload that particular document. So you can see that when it is added, the documents attachments are found here. You also have a report section. As an admin, you can also view all the status of the reports. So reports are basically contains all the expenses that can have multiple expenses inside that report. So as an admin, you can look the status of that but different reports, whether it's approved reports, reimbursed reports, waiting approvals reports, or a rejected reports. And you can see the approvers who has approved that reports from this for a particular user, for a particular submitter, and also the reimbursed amount here. So if you can see, if you can click at the particular reports here, you will see that the reports is comprising of different expenses. You can see in this particular reports also you have a different expenses, which is there. You have a report numbers. So it also showing the warning violations if there's a policy violations done by a specific users, and so that you can see that particular notification inside that. As an admin, you can always return that particular reports before you approve that. You can give a comment here to the particular users and return it back for the corrections here. So also when the reports are again resubmitted for the after the corrections, then you can always give reimburse this particular options from this reimburse option, and you can reimburse that inside Zoho Expense. So you have an options to have a manual reimbursements there. So you can click on this and you can record the reimbursements from here, and it will be recorded, and then you can pay the employee outside that Zoho Expense here. So you can also pay the Zoho once the reports are when you change the status as Zoho as a reimbursed details, then the reports will be marked as reimbursed, and you can then pay the uh, employee accordingly. You can always check the approvers workflow here. You can check all the approval details who had approved the reports here, and that and you can also undo the reimbursements if you want due to some reasons inside that. You have an advances option. So you have the advances as an admin. You can view the statuses of all the advances, whether it's an approved advance, it's a rejected, or it is waiting approvals here. And you can see the unreported advances inside that this particular sections. You can see the reported advances here inside the section, the statuses of that, and you can see all the different statuses under this particular option. In the three dots, you will get the different statuses here. So you can see it in a different tabs like approved or rejected, or different expenses which are white. You can check all the statuses for the different tabs. You can also record the advance as an admin. So the particular user can also record the advances from their own portals, but as an admin, you have an options to record an advance for a particular users in different currencies here. So you can select the currencies, applicable currencies, and you can record the advances here. So once you have a recording the advances for a particular user in a particular currencies, it will be always be converted to a base currencies here. So you can always raise an advance and record an advance here, which will be sent for the approvals to the respective approvals, and they can be approved here. As an admin, you can see the purchase requests. So all the purchase requests which has been raised inside Zoho Expense, you can get the status of all the purchase requests from this particular window. You can see the status as approved, awaiting approvals, rejected status also, and different statuses can be viewed here. We can see the submitters details who have submitted the purchase request. You can see the approvals who have approved that request from here, and the amount for which the purchase request has been approved. You can see this approvers approved and awaiting approvals in a different sections here. You can see the rejected part here. You can see the proposed or cancellations part here. You can see all the approvals statuses from the different tabs under different categories here. So you do not have to search for a approved or a different category of statuses here inside the all. You can have you can search on a different tabs here for a different categories. We'll come to know about the status here. As an admin, you have an access for the corporate cards, so you can add the users corporate cards in bulk. You can add the bulk corporate cards here. You can give the bank name, card numbers. You can add number of cards here, and then company ID here. Zoho Expense supports card bulk card connection with the MX Masters and the Visa cards here inside that, and that can be manageable from here. And you can also connect the individual cards of the users also from the connect corporate card options, and you can also import the statement if you do not find your card inside the card list. So you can add a debit or a credit card here, give the bank details here of the cards here, and then you can save it. So once the corporate cards has been added, the expense which is borne by the corporate cards for any expenses, the statements and the expenses are automatically added and synced inside Zoho Expense, which will save your manual efforts to raise an expense separately and manually. So this is a very useful features when you connect your corporate cards, and all the uh, expenses which is raised through that corporate cards will be added here, that sections inside that automatically in the expense sections. As an admin, you can raise budgets also. So budgets can be of two types. You can raise a general budgets also, user budgets. So general budgets are basically you can create a general budgets for an organizations. For example, you say you can create a budget to the budget name here, select the fiscal year. Fiscal years by default, the current fiscal year selected here. You can have the monthly, quarterly, half yearly, or a yearly budgets here. You can create this budget for the particular amount or a category or expense type. So you can say You can create an amount budget for a particular amount here for to all which is applicable to all the categories. You can raise a budget for a specific category inside in these organizations, and also you can create a budget for a specific expense type in this. So if you select a particular category, you have a budget amount. You can enter the budget amount here. You can save it here, and inside that you can save it, and then you can raise the budget inside that. So once you raise a budget, this budget is raised here inside that, and you can open that budget and you can see. So you can always compare like actual budget versus actual. So all the expense and spending which is done by the organizations, you can always compare that in the budget versus actual, which is also a report there in the report sections inside uh, uh, Zoho Expense also. So it will have a better as an admin, you will have a better control what is an actual spending uh, versus the budget amount. So in the budget also you have options to have raise a user budget also. So if you want to raise a budget for a specific user, like for example, you have an option for raising a monthly budget, quarterly budget, half yearly budget, or a yearly budget. You can have a amount based budget here. So you can raise you can add a amount for a specific months for the particular user here, and then you can have an effective control for the spending for that, but by that particular users, and you can compare with that budgets which is raised for the particular users. If you have already raised a budget for the particular users for the previous years, and you want to have the same budget of amounts and budget, same budget to be cloned here for the current financial years, then you can select that options, click on prefills, and then you have these options of selecting that previous amount, previous year's budget here, which can be filled inside that automatically inside, and you have this amount already filled inside, and you can always apply that budget for that current financial years also, and then track that. As an admin, you have the analytics sections also. So as an admin, you will have an access to the entire organization expense reports also. Different expense reports are mentioned here. You can view and gain meaningful insights for different expenses which has been raised, different reports which has been raised here. You can have uh, you can view the different reports having different expenses. You can check different policy violations reports here across organization, and you can have the reimbursement reports also added here, and as well as the trip reports here. Also having a tax reports and a budget reports, you have the budget versus actual reports. So you can always click on that report and see what is actual spending against allocated budgets for a different period of time. You can always have option to add more budgets here, more filters here, and can compare the reports as for a different time periods here. You can also export the budgets report here in different forms like PDF, Excel, and Excel report here. So every report has an options for exporting the reports here in a different formats, and also have an option to schedule the expense reports for different frequencies like weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. You can set up a startup date from which you want the system Zoho Expense to schedule that reports. You can add the multiple users who are supposed to be the reports sent automatically to those users, and select the formats in which you want that. So once you save that, the reports will be automatically triggered on the setup frequencies here and the setup start date and time periods. So this will prevent the manual interventions of sending the reports uh, every time. So that is the benefit of scheduling the reports here. So you have the report sections here. So as an admin, you have unrestricted access to all the modules, reports, advances, purchase requests, corporate cards, and setting up of your budgets. So that, and you can also view the statuses of all the trips, approved, unapproved, uh, uh, by the approvers for the reports. Approval status also advances and purchase requests and the budgets also legal statuses and also the budgets, a different budget which has been raised inside that, and you can also raise that particular budgets from here as an admin. As an admin, there's other functionality. You can also raise policies inside uh, Zoho Expense. So you have the policies where you can define different policies where the different users can be covered within the policies here. So as when you configure your Zoho Expense, the policy is by default created inside this particular options here. And so when you click that particular options, you have the policy settings here. So you can set up the policy setting. You can set up the policy admin who will be taking control of that particular policies, all the notifications for the policy violations and policy related activities can be triggered to that policy admins here. You can also upload the travel documents, which is under which the employees, the users covered in that will be covered inside that travel policy. You can set up the category limits here. So, and under the policy, you can set up the category limits for a different expense category, which is there inside that. So you can see some default category names are already in there. So you can always you can always add that limits, which is applicable for the employees for the different category limits. For example, if you say that you have the fuel and expense category you want to set up, so you can always click on that. You can set up the expense amount limit, which is covered for the employees who are covered under this particular policy. You can set up the receipt limit policy, and then you can save it here. So once you define that particular policies, this limits inside that particular policy for the different categories, expense categories. So whenever the employees raise expenses under these categories, and when there's a policy violations by the employees, when they're overriding that limits, the system will automatically give the warning or block them for raising the expense, which is beyond that particular limit inside that. So here you can say you can create different categories, different limits inside that. You can open up different categories like that, for example, and then set up an amount, a limit amount for different categories, and save it here. System will automatically raise an alarm or the alert for that, which overrides the user overrides that particular expense amount. As an admin, you can set up the mileage here in terms of kilometer or mileage. So, for example, you want to set up a mileage for your employees, for the fields, for the field staff, or you have some fuel expenses for your organization users. So you can add the vehicles which you want to add inside Zoho expense and define the recording mileage uh, uh, amount which needs to be defined for a particular vehicle per kilometer or a per mile. You can define that particular limit inside that so that the employees can raise their expenses for travel or fuel expenses as per the defined limits inside in this application also. So once you are employees are raising their request here, they can have you can always define the vehicle name. You can define what method you follow for the employees to track their distance travel by them, whether it's enter it manually or it's an odometer method or you have a GPS methods to record their mileage here. So it is applicable for all the methods. You can select accordingly and save it here. And so that mileage settings can be done from here in this particular sections. So you have the per diem also. So in this particular options per diem, as an admin, you can set up a per diem rates, which is nothing else, a straightforward per day rates for an employees you can set up here. So per diem rates are the uh, per day rate you can define for a particular locations, or you can define a default rate of employees when they're traveling to a particular cities or they are traveling. within the domestic geographical limits. So you want to define a certain rate for that. So you can add it, whether it's a default rate applicable, whether they travel anywhere inside the city, or they have some specific location wise rates you can define it. So you can add it from here. You can add a country uh, where they are traveling, and you can always set up the city uh, where they're traveling, and according to the city you can have the rate defined, for example per day 500 rupees as the rates. You can define it, and you can set up the rates as per your own preferences here, and then you can save it here so that it will be applicable to the employees under this policy. And you can also enable the apply per diem based on the travel hours. You can also split per diem based on the expense type here, and that you can add it here inside that, so that you can always define what is, you can always set up a breakup here, for the expense type, like for food they have what breakup is there, what is the amount applicable for the employees to spend on the food and lodging on the per day basis. They can have their per diems added here inside that. So this is the per diem rates, as and most important, as an admin you can define rules which can restrict, or restrict the users for violating the policy norms here. So you can always add a rule here. So you can add and give a name of that rule. You can add rules in terms of a daily limit, monthly limit, or a yearly, or you can set up the custom limits when by defining the criteria here. And so if you want to set up a limit here, which is effective from a particular date, you can set up a limit type which is based on the fixed amount, expense count, mileage limit, location based per diem example. So whatever the limit or the limit type you set up here, the system will check that and give the warnings or block the systems to block the users or restrict the users from raising the that expense, um, if they are violating that particular policy and overriding and raising the expenses beyond that particular limit. The system will either warn or block the users from raising that expense. So you can select one of the categories, whether the system Zoho expense allowed is one is giving the warning to the users, or you can also set up the blocking the users or restricting them for raising that particular expense from here. So these are the rules which you can add it from here. And as part of the other sections here, you can always add some automations from the you can add different automations, report automations. You can add different workflow rules for some automated actions here, and you can also add some actions, like you can add webhooks. You can add some different email alerts, which is triggered by Zoho Expense to the users for the different scenarios. And you can also add some in-app notifications, which is popped up inside Zoho Expense uh, for a different scenarios or criterias that you set up in the alert. So these are the alerts which can be raised through email or through in-app notifications. And you can also add some custom functions here in the form of Zoho Deluge, which is a proprietary language of Zoho. So you can add some kind of a custom functions to have some uh, configurations to be done, which is not a default features, and you want some custom uh, activities to be enabled inside Zoho Expense through a custom function, that you can always add that from this particular section. So this is all the settings which you can do as an admin. So Zoho Expense can also allows you to integrate with different Zoho applications which have a native integrations with all the Zoho app, with some Zoho applications inside Zoho Expense. So you have the Zoho apps integrations with Zoho Expense. You have an accounting applications. You can always integrate with the different third-party accounting applications. All the online reimbursement applications you can integrate, HR related applications, travel applications, third party applications you can always add from here. other applications integrations which you can do as an admin from these sections. So this is basically the overview of the Zoho expense for the submitter access, the approvals role, and the admin role here. Hope you have liked the videos. Thanks for watching.